Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. This morning we would like to dilate upon the subject, who is able to stand? Who is able to stand? As we read the book of Revelation, or Chizayon, this book dares us, saying, read me, because there is a blessing when you read me. And so it seems appropriate and wise for us to spend time in this book of Revelation. Now, some weeks ago, we looked at Revelation chapter 5, and we saw there a sealed book that no man could open. We learned that no one in heaven and no one on the earth or beneath the earth could open this book. It's a sealed book, a scroll. But that scroll, that sealed scroll, is quite important in the sense that it unfolds to us as it is open what is going to take place in the forthcoming years on the earth. And so when Yohanan, could not find anyone to open the book, he began to cry. But the angel came and said, weep not, John. We have found someone who can open the book. He is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And he opened that book. And this morning we want to look at when he starts to open that book. So come with me to chapter 6 of the book of Chizayon. That's Revelation. And now we can look at the seals. And the word says, and I saw when the Lamb, now as we talked a few weeks ago, we said he's the lion and he's also the lamb. He's the lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world for us. But he's also, when he fights the battle for us, he's a lion of the tribe of Judah. And so John here says, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures saying, like a sound of thunder, come and see. Come and see. And I looked and saw a white horse, and he who sat on it holding a bow. The bow here, as we read in Habakkuk 3:9, is the word of Yah. So the bow is the word of Yah. And a crown was given to him, and he went out overcoming and to overcome. So in chapter 6, we see what many call the four apocalyptic horsemen, the four horsemen. And so these four horsemen in Revelation chapter 6, they parallel the four stages of the assembly, the four stages of the assembly in Revelation chapter 2 and 3. So the first horse here, which is, and you can watch the color as they change. The white horse represents the early church, how the church went forth and was conquering on to conquer souls for the kingdom. Its purity, its form, it was pure. And so we recognize that this horse is a horse that in its early day, the church was pure. So pure that the apostles, they were so indwelled with the Ruach Akadash, the Holy Spirit, that when people were brought out in cots and on beds, sick people, the very shadows of Paul would heal them. That's how pure that church was. We saw on one occasion, Peter and John went up unto the temple at the gate of Beautiful, and they saw a sick man lying there begging for money. And Peter and John just spoke to him, said, "Get up and walk." And he got up and he walked. But Paul tells us that the church would soon lose its love. And as the church lost its first love, the church was taken to Smyrna, means persecution, bitterness. And so we see here, and when he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, "Come and see." And another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was given to one who sat on it and take peace from the earth. When Yeshua left, he said, "My peace I give unto you. My peace I leave with you." Here it is, they say, they're coming to take the peace that he left from the earth. So you see, the color moves from white to red. Bloodshed as the seals are opened. And when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." And I looked and saw a black horse, and he who sat on it was holding a pair of balance. He was holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, "A measure of wheat for a denarius." And this is when commercialism entered into the church. And they were selling. And at one point, they were selling indulgences. They were selling forgiveness. Let the people believing that they could pray their souls out of purgatory by way of how much they give. That's the black horse. And John wants you to know he saw another horse. The fourth one is a pale horse. And this represents the fourth church in Asia. So we have Ephesus, we have Smyrna, we have Pergamum, and you will remember what we've studied, that in Pergamum, there's a third church. When economics took over the church, that was a time that Constantine came into the church, and Yeshua said, that's where Satan's seat was. And this pale horse is the church of Thyatira, meaning that's the medieval church, the Dark Ages. And it became dark because the people were no longer reading the word of Yah. And that period stretched all the way up until the Enlightenment period, the Renaissance period, when men began to believe in themselves. The word symbolized that as a pale horse. So the seals are being opened. And so the church that came after that is Sardis, the Reformation churches. So many of the churches we have today, if not all of them, they all came out of the Reformation period. Martin Luther, Zwingli, and so on and so forth. They came out. And they had sought to reform the church. But they did not go all the way back to Ephesus, who had lost his first love. And the condition or the circumstances that we have in the church today is just simply that the church has lost its love. People don't have that desire anymore for holiness. They have an insatiable desire for wealth and for possessions. They don't invest in the word. They don't give as they used to give. They don't praise as they used to pray. And so the church has lost its first love. And so at the end of chapter 6, the question is asked. Because up until the sixth seal, he's saying things are getting increasingly worse. Things are getting from bad to terrible. And so in verse 17, it says, because the great day of his wrath has come, who is able to stand? That's our subject today. Who is able to stand? We read in chapter 3 of Revelation, he's outside knocking, and the question there is, who is it is going to open so I can come in? So in chapter 3, the question is asked, who is going to open for me? And in chapter 6, at the end of the sixth seal, he's saying, I've not yet opened the seventh seal. If you think what has gone is terrible, just think what is coming. Who then is able to stand? That's the question. We may tell ourselves all kinds of things. How grounded we are, and how we have been staid members of a particular church, and how we have great positions in these churches, and how the members respect us. But my question is, what do the angels write about you? And so the question is, as you await the opening of the seventh seal, who will stand? Who will stand? Come with me to chapter 7 of Chizayon. And after this I saw, after what? After the six seals. After the churches. In Revelation chapter 2 and 3. After this I saw four messengers standing in the four corners of the earth. The four cardinal directions. The angel is standing, holding the four winds of the earth. Winds in prophecy means strife. They're holding it back for a reason. That the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on the tree. Trouble is coming, and it is being restrained by these messengers. Why? And I saw another messenger coming up from the rising of the sun, holding the seal. Holding the what? The seal of the living Elohim, and he cried with a loud voice to the four messengers to whom it was given to harm the earth and the sea, saying, do not harm the earth or the sea, nor the trees until we have sealed the servant of Elohim upon their foreheads. Are you with me? The messengers here, they're looking for people they can seal. Because he's letting you know that that which is coming in the seventh seal, if you are not sealed in what's coming, you will not be able to stand. So the angel is scurrying, looking throughout the earth to find the people that they can seal. You may have been, as you sometimes boast, that you're a member of that particular church. And you are a long line of people in that church. You may have a great position in that church. But are you able to stand? Because we're told that the pressure that is coming on the outside, if that which is inside of you is not equal to the pressure outside of you, you'll burst. Are you with me? Think of it in terms of a balloon. How it blows up. Each of us, all things above water, is 14.7 pounds per square inch. So when you blow up a balloon, if the pressure inside of the balloon is greater than the pressure outside of it, it explodes, it implodes. Some time ago, not that many months ago, some of you will remember that submersible that went down was on its way to look at the Titanic. And the atmospheric pressure at sea level was such that it exploded. The pressure was too much. The angel wants you to know that the pressure that is coming in the last day when the seventh seal is open, if you do not have something inside of you that is equal to the seventh seal, you will explode too. Who will stand? It was on the 18th of June, 2023, that the Titan went down to see the Titanic. We don't have to go down to see the Titanic. We live in a Titanic situation. We live there. The country we live in is like the Titanic. Many people see it as a cruise liner. But the word wants you to know that there is iceberg everywhere. And so the angel, they're searching to find people who they can seal. And they're not sealing you based on the church you belong to. They're sealing you based on your character, your conduct before Yah. Your conduct. And so you better come with me to the book of Psalm that was read for us earlier. The book of Psalm. Now, we're going to read Telahim, that's Psalm 119. And we're going to read from, well, you can see how the psalm is actually designed. Psalm 119, like a few others in the book, they are called acrostic psalms. Acrostic psalms. Psalm 119, as you see, all of it is designed by way of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, starting with Aleph and end with Tah. And what's interesting also is that as you look under the heading of each of the Hebrew alphabet, you see each of those have 8 verses. So 8 times 22 is 176. It has 176 verses. It's an acrostic psalm. And so in context of the question asked in chapter 6, who will be able to stand? Let's start at verse 89. Forever, O Yah, your word is settled in heaven. It's what? It's settled. That means it's not going to change. Your faithfulness continues throughout all generations. You established the earth and it stands. It what? Stands. Listen to what the psalmist is saying. It doesn't say the earth revolves. It said it stands. They stand this day according to your ordinances, for all things are your servants. If your law had not been my delight, then I would have perished in my affliction. I'm reading through Lamed and Mem. I would have perished. David says, if your laws, your word was not in my heart, in my mind, directing me, giving me wisdom to know how to walk, I would have been blown up like the Titan. I would have perished. Because the many things I had to go through, the pressure inside of me had to be equal with the pressure outside of me. In fact, a balloon never bursts. It is crushed. The force outside. Satan is exerting force on us. And if you don't have something internally to deal with the pressure outside, you too will explode. Sometimes you hear people in anger burst out in certain words and they say certain things. It's the pressure inside of them contending with the pressure outside, the bills that they can't pay, the difficulty they're having in their relationship, problems at work. The pressure inside is getting at them. And the angel is saying, I want to find people who are cool in their head. They don't explode. I want to seal them. Because we watch in chapter 6 that the Euphrates River, one of the signs at the end of time, is now drying up. David says in Psalm 119, 105, your word is a lamp. You didn't hear me. David says, your word is a lamp. What? To my feet, and a light unto my path. I don't need to conjecture where to walk, what decisions to make in life. Because your word direct me, and I don't go by my feelings, I go by my principles that you have given to me. Because my feelings are the most unreliable things that I have, and I can't rely on them. But your word is the lamp. Your word is the menorah that is inside of me. And the word that is inside of me is what stabilizes me so that I don't implode against the pressure that is being enforced from outside. So they're looking for people to seal. They're looking for that kind of person, people to seal. David wants you to know that. And so perhaps we need to look at Ezekiel chapter 8. Because so often you hear people say, well, my church is the remnant church. And another one down the road will exclaim with the same ebullience, ecstatic, my church is the remnant. And they use terms indiscriminately without understanding what the remnant is. But before we go back to the book of Chizayon, Revelation, let's just look in chapter 8 of Ezekiel. Chapter 8, and it came to be in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th of the new moon, as I sat in my house with the elders of Yehuda, sitting, notice the word here, the elders of what? Yehuda. Not the elders of the Jews. The Jews is really not a biblical word because 500 years ago, there was no J in the alphabet. And so we want to stick to the correct term. And so where you see in the word of Yah that the Jews did this and Jews did that, they're Yehudis. There was no J. So we want to stick to what Moses wrote, Paleo-Hebrew. And so Ezekiel here is telling us that he was in his house. Of course, Ezekiel, as you well know, was in Babylon, having been taken captive by Nebuchadnezzar. But while the good men, when you read Jeremiah chapter 24, it tells you that there were two baskets of figs, and one good fig. The good fig were taken into captivity, and the bad figs were leave. You didn't hear me. Let me say that again. The good figs were taken into captivity, like Daniel, Ezekiel, and so on. But the bad figs remain. That's why the word keeps telling us, come out of her, my people. The good figs, come out. The bad figs remain. Hear me? We're going to see why they're bad figs in a minute. And so Ezekiel is taken here because things are happening in the temple in Jerusalem, but nobody seemed to care about the integrity and the purity of the temple and the people in the temple. So Yah had to go to Babylon where Ezekiel was, took him by a lock of his hair and brought him in the spirit to Jerusalem to show him what was happening in the temple. And I looked and I saw a likeness like the appearance of fire. From his waist and downward, the appearance was like fire, and from his waist and upward, the appearance of brightness like glowing metal. And he stretched out the form of hand and took me by a lock of my hair, and the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven and brought me in visions to Elohim, to Jerusalem. So Yah had to go to Babylon where he was, bring him to Jerusalem, to show him what was happening in the church, in the temple, because nobody else saw it. And so Ezekiel wants us to know, Yah said to him, look. The first thing he saw, he said, I saw the image of jealousy, which causes jealousy. Do we still have jealousy in the churches today? Yes. Do people still covet each other? Yes. It's in there. But nobody cared. We still dress up in our fine tunic each week, whether you go on a Sabbath or you go on a Sunday, and we still continue. Yah said, this is an offense to me. It sends a stench to my nostrils. Why is it that none of you see it? He had to go and bring Ezekiel there. And he said to me, Son of man, please lift up your eyes towards the north. And I lift up mine eyes northward, and north of the slaughter place gate, I saw the image of jealousy in the entrance. And he said to me, Son of man, do you see what they're doing? The great abominations which the house of Israel are doing here, driving me away, and he said, they're driving me out of the church. Because of their conduct, their speech, their behavior, their lack of love for each other, their selfishness. They have an insatiable appetite for other things, but not for the word of Yah. It's driving me away from them. But he says, I'm not on speaking terms with them, so I can't talk to them about it. I have to get Ezekiel and bring him here and show him as a witness. They're divorcing all over the place. And so divorce has become like confetti in the church. He said, they're stealing my money. The ministers, they're getting rich, and the people are getting poorer and poorer. It caused a concern to me. And those who should be giving are not giving. They're robbing me. Can a man rob Yah? Oh, yes. We read of that situation in Acts chapter 5. A couple named Ananias and Sapphira. They saw that early church, that church of Ephesus. It was going good, and everybody was in purity. They were giving all the time, and the word says, and they would sell their belonging and throw it at the feet of the apostle. They came and they saw a church like that. If you saw a church like that, you'd want to join it, wouldn't you? When you go to a church and when you see the pastor pray, people are healed and are raised from the dead, you'd want to be part of that, wouldn't you? Well, Ananias and Sapphira wanted to be. And so when they saw the giving of other people, they decided they would sell their house and give the proceeds. And when they sold the house, they got more than what they bargained for. And the word says they kept some back. People are still doing that. And Kepha stood up and said, why have you lied to the Holy Spirit? And they died, both of them. These things are written for our admonitions. And so Yah says, Ezekiel, they're driving me away from them. You know, sometimes people are doing well in business and they think that it is because they're living right while the business is thriving. No. Yah is allowing you to be successful, to see how you deal with the blessings that he has given you. We mustn't forget that. And so Ezekiel is on a tour. And he said to me, verse 8, Son of man, please dig into the wall. And when I dug into the wall, I saw a door. And he said to me, go in and see the evil abomination which they are doing there. And I went in and looked and saw all kinds of creeping creatures, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel, carved all around the walls. This is in the temple in Jerusalem, the city that he loves. He said, I love Jerusalem more than all the dwellings of Jacob. Verse 14, and he brought me to the door of the north gate of the house, and I saw women. I saw what? Women. Women is symbolic of church. And I saw the churches weeping. I saw the women weeping for Tammuz. Who's Tammuz? Tammuz is a son of Nimrod. It was Tammuz who was born in December the 25th, and they call it Christmas. And he said they were weeping. Christmas has just passed, which most of the people in our land kept. He said they are weeping for Tammuz. Jeremiah says, oh, they go into the forest and they cut down the tree and they deck it. So my point is that all that was happening back then in the temple that Solomon built is still happening now. So this is what Yah did. So join me in chapter 9 of Ezekiel. He said, and he called out in my hearing with a loud voice, saying, let the punishment of the city draw near, and with his weapon of destruction in his hand. And look, 6 men came from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with his battle axe in his hand, and one man in their midst was clothed with linen and had a writer's inkhorn at his side, and they came in and stood beside the bronze slaughter place, and the esteem of Elohim of Yeshua went up from the what? The cherub. His spirit left. Why did his spirit leave the house? Because of what they were doing in chapter 8. He said, when you do these things, I'm out of here. You remember, this is Solomon's temple, but you remember Herod's temple when Yeshua came. In Luke 13:35 and in Matthew 23:38, he said, your house is left to you desolate. I'm gone. And in 70 AD, Titus came and destroyed that temple. And both those temples were destroyed on the same day, the 9th of Av. Why? Because despite the fact that the people were saying they come to worship, their conduct and their lifestyle sent a stench to Yah's nostril. So in chapter 9, we see this man with a writer's inkhorn. He's taking note. Sometimes we go to churches and we don't think that the angels are there writing. We just conduct ourselves anyhow and think that it's all right. Sometimes we can't even wait until church is finished because the sermon is too long, they say. And it reminds me of a gentleman who told me some years ago he was in a church. And midway through worship, a friend of his spoke to the gentleman who was sitting by him and said, could you give my wife a ride home? And the friend inquired as to, well, where are you going? He said, I'm going home to watch the ball game on the Sabbath. Are you with me? People no longer attend prayer meeting like they used to. We don't even realize that the Sabbath starts from sunset on Friday evening. And we're sitting in church and we're looking at our watch and we're wondering, well, when is Sabbath? So that we can get back to the worldly things that we enjoy doing. The church has lost its first love. And so the angels now, they're looking for people to seal because the seventh seal is about to be opened. Are you with me? And so, verse 4, chapter 9, Ezekiel. And Yahweh said unto him, pass on into the midst of the city, unto the midst of Jerusalem, and you shall put a mark. Put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and cry over the abominations that are done within it. People sit in church and they have nothing to say. They come with nothing and they leave with nothing. They're quiet. They don't want to rock the boat. He said, only those who cry out about the abomination that are taking place, seal them, but the others slay them. Are you with me? Remember, we just read that his spirit has already gone. And if his spirit is gone, my question to you, what are you doing in a church where your spirit is not? We just read that David says the word of Yah is a lamp. It's a lamp. It's a clay lantern. That's the old lantern that they used to have. Where I come from, they call it the Tilly lamp. It's a lamp unto my feet. It's a light. So let me ask you, have you ever wondered seriously why they designed your car the way they have done? How? Why have they designed it that way? Most cars these days, you drive them, and if something goes wrong, the light comes on and tells you your tire needs hair in it. It's saying the pressure inside of your tire is not equal to the pressure outside of the tire. It will explode. If you want oil, that light comes on and it tells you. And so the manufacturer, you almost think they have plagiarized the scriptures. And the reason I'm saying that, you better come with me to Revelation chapter 18. Revelation chapter 18. And the word says, and after this I saw another messenger coming down from heaven, having great authority, and earth he lightened up with what? From his esteem. He's full of light. He's telling you something is wrong. Your car tells you, and when your car tells you something is wrong, you rush all the way to the mechanic to find out what is wrong. The angel comes from heaven and light up the place and tell you something is wrong, and you still sitting there. Come on. Let's read it again for emphasis. And after this I saw another messenger coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was lightened from his esteem. And he cried with a mighty voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, and a haunt for every unclean and hateful bird, because all the nations have drunk what? Of the wine of the wrath of her whoring, and the sufferings of the earth have committed whoring with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the power of riotous living. Listen to verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her. Why? The spirit is left. Come out of these churches. That's what he's saying. Come out from her, my people, lest you share in our sins unless you receive our plague. He's saying if you see some of the things that we've just read in Ezekiel chapter 8 taking place in your church, leave, because my spirit is not there. I am looking for people that I can seal who cries out against these abominations. That's what he's saying. Leave. Come out. And it matters not whether you've been in the church for 20 or 30 years. Come out, my people. So Yah knows that he has people in Babylon. Are you with me? Now, the mystery of righteousness is the fact that Yeshua, who is Elohim, became man. That's a mystery. Are you with me? That's a mystery. How he condescended to our level, took on human flesh, and became one with us. The converse of that is also true. The mystery of iniquity is when man presents himself in the temple of Yah, professing to be God. So come with me to Thessalonians. Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3, Paul says, that day about the coming of Yah, that day will not come until there is a falling away for her. There is an apostasy for her. So what you sing in your church is really the outcome of what Paul spoke about. He said the apostasy, the falling away must come first before that man of sin is be revealed, who oppose it, all that is called Yah, and sits in the temple of Yah, proclaiming himself to be Yah. That's the mystery of iniquity. He said, if you're in that church, when the angel passes by with his inkhorn, your name will not be listed in the Lamb's book of life, because you didn't leave when I leave. But he's looking for people to seal. And as we read earlier, he said, they were sealed from every tribe of people from Israel. Isn't that what it says? Now, people who have done sloppy scholarship, they look at that and say, well, see, these are talking about the Jews. Yeah? Because tribes. And so for that very reason of the confusion that exists in Babylon, Mr. Babylon, that's a church, Mr. Babylon. Because that confusion exists, I want you to join me in the book of Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2. Because Paul, I think, straightened this thing out. He does that in Romans 2:28, because Paul wants you to know he who is a Jew outwardly is really not a Jew. I should say, he who is a Yehudi is not a Yehudi, because he was born in Israel. And so what they have done, and you know this, they have taken Gentile people and have made them political Jews. That's not what the Bible is talking about. So come with me to Ephesians chapter 2. Paul says that, and you were dead in trespasses and sin. He's talking to Gentiles here. Please understand that. You at one time, you were dead in trespass. Why? In which you once walked according to the course of this world. You were living carnally. That's how you were living. According to the ruler of authority of the air and the spirit that is now working in the what? Sons of disobedience. In any aspect of your life that you are disobedient to Yah, you are among them. He's not looking for you. Don't worry. The angel is not looking to seal you. He'll pass you by. You hear the word of Yah and you take no notice of it and you continue to do your own thing. Don't worry. He's passing you by. He's not going to seal you. So Paul says in verse 12, come with me there, that at that time you were without Messiah. Remember when we were young and some of us were not yet baptized? We had not yet received Yeshua. We were not yet baptized in his name because the church had taught that we should be baptized in Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Those are titles. Those are not names. But now that we are grown and we are mature in the word, we're no longer on milk. We're eating solids. Paul says that at one time you were without Messiah, excluded from the citizen of Israel. You are not part of the commonwealth of Israel. Remember, and I want to stress this point, Paul here is speaking to Gentiles who then later on became believers. Paul wants you to know that you were once a Gentile, but the minute you accept Yeshua, baptized in his name, you are now part of the commonwealth of Israel. You are saved as an Israelite, not as a Gentile. We need to understand that. So when we read Revelation chapter 7 and we read Revelation chapter 14, and he says those who are sealed, they were sealed according to the 12 tribes of Israel. It's not talking about some geographical people. It's talking about people who believe in Yeshua. That's what he's talking about. But we have misunderstood this. So Paul says, at one time you were a Gentile, but now in Messiah, verse 13, you who once were far off have been brought near by the blood of the Messiah. You are no there is no Gentile church. When I read Revelation chapter 21, 22, and I see that the gates of the city, they have the names of the children of Israel. I don't see any gates there for Gentiles. I don't see that. And you continue to say that you're a Gentile. How could that be? Come with me to the book of Numbers. Numbers. And we will look at chapter 15. Chapter 15. Because sometimes they teach us so foolishly that we end up being foolish ourselves. And we look at verse 15. The word says, one ordinance shall be both for you of the congregation and also for the stranger that sojourneth with you, an ordinance forever. For what? Forever in your generation. As you are, so shall the stranger be before the Yah. He gives one law, not one for the Jew and one for the Gentile. One law. And the Gentile is supposed to come into and join what? The Yehudi. Let's read Exodus 12 and verse 49. Exodus 12 and verse 49. Because they have really hit us in the head. And we're going to have to recover from that. It says, one law shall be for him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. He doesn't give two. Are you with me? So the word says in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 38 that a mixed multitude of people left Egypt. Isn't that what it says? They went up with them also a mixed multitude, meaning there were people there who were not Yehudis. They were not Yehudis. You know, I'm restraining myself from using this word Jew because it's a borrowed, invented J that they put in there. But he said when he took them up to Mount Sinai and he gave them the commandment, he said all of these people were what? The Israelites. Why? You better come with me to Exodus chapter 19. Exodus chapter 19. The word says, and we'll read from verse 5. And he shall be unto me. Well, let's start from verse 5. Now, therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, keep my what? My covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests. A kingdom of what? Priests. And a holy nation. That's what we're called to be. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. So once he says this and they say everything that Yah says we will do, they became an Israelite by faith. No Gentile anymore. That's what Ephesians is talking about. There's no Gentile in the kingdom. You're all Israelites. So when I hear people who are believers say, well, you know, I'm a Gentile, you're saying you're an unbeliever. That's what a Gentile is. We need to understand that there is no such thing as a Gentile church. Are you with me? So Philippians 2:5, what did it say? Let this mind, this what? This mind that was in Yeshua be also in you. Let it be in you. Let's look what a remnant looks like, because sometimes we get confused as to what the remnant is and who is going to be sealed. Revelation chapter 12, and let's look at verse 17. Remember, in Revelation 12, the church went into the wilderness. And when the church came out, Satan was wroth with one aspect of that church. And by the way, let me just say, there's only one church. Hebrews 12 and verse 23 says, this is the general assembly that is headquartered in heaven. So every church that exists today is a member of that assembly. And to retain your citizenship and membership or priesthood, you have to do what that assembly is doing. Are you with me? You can't join a club and bring your own rules. You can't do that. You cannot go to Solomon's temple and bring Dagon worship. You can't do that. You can't go to the temple of Yah and have Balaam teaching you or Jezebel teaching you. He told us that in Revelation chapter 2 and 3. In Pergamos, he said, Balaam is your teacher. In Thyatira, he says, Jezebel is teaching you. Come out. You see what I'm saying? Elijah in chapter 18 of Kings, 1 Kings, Elijah said, if Baal be Baal, then serve him. And if Yah be Yah, then serve him. And then Joshua, prior to that, picks up the theme or established the theme. As for me and my house, we will serve Yah. Are you with me? So when I see people come in and they bring a whole saddlebag of titles and ideas that has no biblical bearing, and they use that to frame their theology, and are most ebullient by the fact that, hey, we are in him. He said, no, you're not in me. Let me show you who gets sealed. Revelation chapter 12 and verse 17. He says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman, single, who went to he went to make war with the remnant. Not all of them. He did not go to make war with all of the people who belonged to this woman. But who did he make war with? The remnant of her seed. Why? Which keep the commandments of Yah and have the testimony of Yeshua. They keep the commandment. They keep the feast days. The other women, they say the feast days are done away with. Some of them say the Sabbath is done away with. Satan said, I'm not even angry with them. I already got them in my bag. He's not angry with them. He's angry with those who keep the commandment, those who keep Passover, those who keep the Feast of Pentecost, those who keep the Feast of Tabernacle, the Day of Atonement. We're all waiting for sin to be forgiven, but sin is tried on the Day of Atonement, and you still don't turn up to court and say you're with him. No, the angel is not looking for you to seal you. Not at all. So Revelation is letting you know who the remnant are. So you better join me now in chapter 14 of the book of Revelation. Are you with me? Because Babylon is fallen. Are you with me? Why? He says, all the nations have drunk of the false teachings. It doesn't matter what denomination you say you're in. You've drunk of it. And no wonder I see you walking around bumping into other people because you're tipsy. You're drunk. Because Babylon has fallen. Because the pressure inside of you, the air inside of you, is not equal to the pressure that is being exerted on you, and you're about to explode because the seventh seal is going to open, and we'll get back there in a minute. But I want to show you that the kind of people who are sealed. Let's go back to Revelation 14. Are you with me? Verse 6. And I saw another angel flying midst of heaven, having the everlasting good news to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, what? Fear Yah, and give glory to him. Give him kavod. You could not have feared Yah and conduct yourself in the way that you have. Ananias and Sapphira did not fear Yah. They just wanted to keep up appearances so that the apostle will see that, hey, we're good church members. Peter says, we don't deal with that. Because the church of Ephesus, we're told, they tried people by the word. And when they found them to be liars, they said, we don't want anything to do with you. They tried them. Some people are just looking for convenience. And they're looking for a church that just to hang out, as if it's a drop-in center, like a culture center. You just go there and spend time. That's not what this is about. Your soul hinges on this. Are you with me? Oh, yes. Verse 18 of the same chapter. And another angel came out from the altar which had power over fire and cried with a loud voice to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, thrust in thy sickle and gather the cluster of the vine. You know, the whole thing, salvation thing, is about the harvesting of souls. It's about the harvest at the end of the year. And so when Yeshua in chapter 5 of Revelation redeemed us, because he's the Goel, as we saw in Ruth, the book of Ruth, that the Goel, Boaz, married who? Ruth, so that he could redeem the land, so that the name of Elimelech would not be written out of history. Yeshua had to do the same thing because he is the ultimate Goel. He is the clansman redeemer who redeems us so that our name will not be etched out of the book of life as Elimelech's name was being threatened with extinction. And so when he restored the land, it's no you having a piece of land if you're not going to do anything with it. And you notice throughout the scripture, Yeshua uses the agricultural system to teach us lessons. So he has the land now, and so he plants us, as the sister taught this morning, as he put us in good soil, so he expects an harvest. He calls that the fruits. You wonder why he's coming back in the fruit harvest, don't you? He's coming back for fruits in the Feast of Tabernacle. So when you come and what you produce is nothing like the fruit that he expects, he sees the ackee tree bearing breadfruits and guineps. Now you understand why he cursed the fig tree, saying you should have had fruits on you, because you had foliage, you had many leaves, but you had no fruit beneath that. I'm going to curse you. And the disciples, they looked and they were in awe because he died. Sardis is that dead church. You have a name, but you're dead. And so the angels are in search. They're going to that assembly and that assembly, and they're looking because they have inkhorn, and they're writing, and they're making sure that these people are people who cried aloud, and they did not like the abomination of what was happening, and they tried the people with the word. He says, seal them. Seal them. Seal them. Yes? So, who are these people? It says that these people, because John said, I saw 144,000 of them. Are you with me? Let's go there and read it for ourselves. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him, I'm reading from Revelation chapter 14, and with him 144,000 having his father's name. I have his father's name. His father's name is Yahweh, Yahuwah, not Lord, not God. He's not a British baron. He has a name written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven as the voice of many waters and as the voice of great thunder. And I heard the voice of the harpers harping with their harp, and they sung, as it were, a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn the song. Why? Because the song is born out of their experience. Nobody can sing it. Swing low, sweet chariot. They call that the Negro spiritual. It is born out of their experience during slavery. Nobody else could sing that. I've heard other people sing it, but they don't have the experience to match it. Are you with me? The air inside of them is not consistent with the air outside of them. So even when they sing, they explode into laughter because they can't sing it. Are you with me? These are they which were not defiled with women. No other churches have defiled them. I'm talking about those who are sealed. John says, I want you to know, I want to identify their character, who it was that was sealed. He said, these are they which were not defiled by women. Women signify church. For they are virgins, they are pure, they are maidens, they are they which follow the Lamb. They follow the Lamb wherever you go. If you were following the Lamb, you would know on the Day of Atonement what is happening. You would know on the day of Pentecost what is happening. You would know when Passover comes, but you keep Easter and you keep Christmas. You is not looking for you. Not you. And you can even hold up a placard. He won't see that. He said, I never knew you. I'm looking for these. Shall we read it again? Just to remind ourselves. These are they which are not defiled with women, for they are virgins. They are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruit unto Yah, to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no what? Guile. For they are without fault before the throne of Yah. Did you hear that? You hear people going around and say, well, we can't be perfect. But you're behaving as if you don't have any fault. He said, these, because they submit everything. It's not that they haven't sinned, but they committed to him. They've confessed all their sin. And so he covered them with his righteousness. And so they are without sin because he took their sin and he gave them imputed righteousness. So they're now working out their salvation with fear and with trembling. And that's how they stand. Who then is able to stand? The question is asked. Let's close this thing out. Let's go back to Revelation chapter 7. Revelation chapter 7. The angel says, I saw 4 angels, and they're holding back the wrath of Yah. And they're holding back the wrath of Yah, the wind that is going to blow on the earth until Yah's people are sealed. Because the wrath that is coming, regardless of what you hear these left behind people say, that the church is going to be raptured. That's not what it says. It says the wrath that is coming is going to come on the wicked and on the righteous. But the righteous who are sealed, they will stand. That's what it says. But they have a doctrine that you're going to be left behind and the church won't go through any persecution. That's not what it says. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal. Put a mark on them. Are you with me? So when the angel of death, hear me, passes by, he will see the bloodstained banner. He will see their houses. Just like it happened in Egypt at that midnight hour. Are you with me? Just like that. That's how you stand. So the question that is asked at the end of chapter 6 is answered here. When you are sealed by the blood of Yeshua, not as a Gentile, but having said in baptism, through your vow, I will do all that Yah says, you then become an Israelite. So don't go about calling yourself a Gentile. You're an Israelite. And you belong to one of the tribes. That's why you're saved in one of the tribes. And John wants you to know. He said, don't hurt the herd. Don't do anything yet. Just go through the different assemblies, wherever they are, and hear them. If they have been crying out against the abominations, Yah says when 2 men and 2 women are together in sexual union, it says an abomination. But some of the churches now are bringing that in and is saying they're going to bless that union. Yah said it's an abomination. If there are people crying out, he said, you look for those kind of people who don't keep quiet, but they speak out against the thing that offends me. Seal them. Seal them. Oh, yes, seal them. And so John says, you see, these are the first fruit. And John says, and after this I beheld and know a great multitude, which no man could number, all nations. Of all what? Nations mean Gentiles. And the kindreds and people and tongues stood, they what? They stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in what? White robes and the palms in their hand, and cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our Yah, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. And all the angels stood round about the throne, and about the elders and the four beasts, and fell before the throne on their faces, and what? When we invite you here on a Sabbath, we expect you to be dressed in your best behavior, not just the clothes you wear, the content of your character should be such that when you speak, people will believe that you are truly inspired by Yah. And you don't get a pass because you're in the same condition as I am. We come to the foot of that tree to be redeemed by him. Because we have all sinned and we have come short of the glory of Yah. But how could I not remember those 6-7 inches forged nails? They were forged, and they were struck in his wrist by the force of a hammer. And the nerve, hear me, if you have ever knocked your elbow on a table, you will know what I mean. And they did not play ease up. After that, they slapped him across the face. They spat at him and pierced him. Hear me? And the word says, blood came out of his side. For what? For me to come to church and disobey him? You didn't get it at all. It's not the church of Ephesus you're looking for. I must give you direction to Disney. Orlando. We have come to worship him. That woman at the well, she came just to draw water. And when she heard that he had water better than that was in the well, she said, are you greater than our father Jacob? Are you? He said, I'll give you water that you will never thirst again. Permanently. She said, but you have nothing to draw with. But before I give it you, go and call your husband. Well, what does husband having to do with a drink of water? But she was honest. She said, I have none. Oh, you speak well, said Yeshua. How could you have been married 5 times and not have a husband? None of them are yours. None of them. The word says she left her water pot and she went telling other people. We don't have that zeal anymore. We come to church on Saturday and we don't even speak to anybody anymore. We don't have that desire to communicate, whether it's Saturday or Sunday. We don't do that. She ran. She came to pick up water. That was her primary duty, but she left it because the word was like fire in her bones, said Jeremiah. Are you with me? Oh, yes. And so this said woman, she said, all right, we worship up in the hills in Mount Gerizim. But you guys, you worship down in Jerusalem. She didn't know that it was Jeroboam that changed her religion. She didn't know that. And she didn't know that her religion came from Babylon, because when the king of Assyria had taken the 10 tribes out, he brought people from Babylon and repeopled the place with Babylonian people. But she didn't know that because she's drinking downstream. Way down later on, Yeshua says, your religion is mongrel. You don't even know what you're talking about. Salvation came to the Yehudi first, and then the Gentiles. She said, what? Oh, yes. Jeroboam changed it. Jeroboam changed the day of worship. Did you know that everybody kept the Sabbath until the 4th century? It was in the 4th century that it was changed. And now you're telling me it's all right to keep the Sunday as a Sabbath? No. Let's go back to basics. And so the word says, these are they that were not defiled by other women. They were not deceived by other women, by other churches. They kept their eyes on the Lamb and followed him wherever he goeth. So, the 7th seal, let's really just finish on this. Chapter 8. And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before Yah, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before Yah out of the angel's hand, and the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there was voices and thundering and lightnings and an earthquake. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. And the second angel sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. We won't even go through all of it, but this is the last seal. And this is why at chapter 6, at the end of it, he's telling you something is coming that you have never ever seen or you could have conceived. And unless you are sealed, you won't be able to stand through this. Let this speak to your hearing, your delinquent ears, so that your eyes may see the word and change, because we ask these things in Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.